Hello, it's Claire Colbert here from Family Mediation and Mentoring with Rachel Oakes and Adele Ballantyne, who's here to talk about her early intervention work. Adele is part of Eleda Consultancy. She's a qualified psychotherapist and counsellor, and I have had the pleasure of being co-chair with Adele for the last few years of the Parenting After Parting Committee with Resolution. Hello, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Hi Claire, hi Rachel. Really happy to be here this morning.
Well, we wanted to chat to you and we wanted to have an opportunity to find out more about the work you do, which is so valuable for families. So if you could just start off by telling us a little bit about how your business and how you support families and what the work you do with them.
Okay, so I've been running Eleda Consultancy now for over a decade. That's very scary. And my original career path was to just work with individuals, couples and families across the board, working with any sort of relationship issue. My work broadened out and I was working with businesses and NHS trusts quite a lot. But what I noticed was in the work that I was doing with couples, I seemed to be getting more couples who were talking about ending their relationship rather than wanting to regrow a new one, make some tweaks and make it better. So what I noticed in those relationships was that lots of parents want to do it in a way that is amicable, that is less traumatic, less aggressive, and most importantly, it's about their children and not wanting to cause a relationship breakdown, to cause them emotional trauma. And what I noticed was I'd do some work with those couples, I'd send them off to see their lawyers, and then 6 months later they'd come back and they would hardly be speaking to each other. And I'm not meaning to be disrespectful to family lawyers, because there's some excellent family lawyers out there, but I think what I noticed quite quickly was the narrative of divorce that we have as non-lawyers and that you have as legal professionals is very, very different. And the narrative is that it's adversarial, you go to court. And my clients, often I would hear them say that when they were angry with each other: I'll see you in court if you're not going to agree. And quite often when we did some more work, those things blow over and we talk about different ways of doing things, and that actually they don't have to follow that narrative. And so I went to talk to some local family lawyers about what I was noticing from my clients after they'd been and had some consultations with them. And very soon we all realized that there was much work to be done, not only in the education of family lawyers, because you go and learn the law, quite rightly, but there's so much more to family separation, to couple separation, that family lawyers need to know in order to make their consultations much better with their clients and ultimately less adversarial. So I started working with local family lawyers and providing training and therapeutic support for them, which is going really, really well, and they're loving it. It's really fantastic. But more importantly, it's about the clients and what they need early on. And so working towards, certainly with Resolution and the Parenting After Parting Committee, we're looking at ways to ease the process for families. And certainly early intervention for me stands out head and shoulders above everything else in terms of what we need to be doing. We need to be diverting families that really don't need to go to court away to services like I provide and mediation. There are so many other ways to make this better. It's a traumatic process. We just need to make it kinder for people, because they've got to go on and live after this process is over. They've got to go and co-parent after this process is over. And if we're constantly stirring the pot and making it more adversarial, then that makes their job of becoming co-parents so much more difficult. So what they need at the beginning is lots of information, education, training and support, so that they know what to expect of themselves as adults whose relationship has broken down, and also what their children are going to need from them, so that when they come through that legal process, they can make some good decisions together, whilst keeping, I always talk to my clients about it's two separate journeys. You are on an adult to adult relationship breakdown. That's one journey, which is often full of mistrust, hurt, pain, and anger.
Lots of emotion.
Lots of emotion. And the second journey is the beginning of a co-parent relationship where you need trust, you need to be calm, you need to be able to communicate together. Two very separate journeys requiring different skills. And you've got to negotiate that when you're upset, traumatized, and angry. So early intervention, the earlier we get into this and help our clients and give them different routes that they can go and be in the room together and talk together when it's safe to do so, then it's going to end so much better for everybody.
So Adele, for anyone who's listening to this, thinking this sounds really interesting, and kind of wanting to understand a bit more, because we certainly see people wanting to gather lots of information before they maybe embark on something. Do people need to be thinking about preparing anything, or do they need to do something before to be ready for meetings with you?
I would say not always, because sometimes people are so full of that emotional trauma that actually it's very difficult to see beyond that. So sometimes the work is about helping to calm all of that down. Often when people separate, they're on two separate journeys. You've got one person who's been deciding, probably in my experience it's about at least 18 months, that they've been thinking, this isn't for me, I've had enough, I've tried, they're not listening to me. And so they start going through that grieving cycle, because whenever we experience change, we go through loss, and that's the same cycle that we go through when we lose a loved one through death. And so we go through those 5 stages. And normally by the time the conversation happens with their partner, I've had enough, I want to separate, that's their bus crash moment. What do you mean you want to end it? Because, for whatever reasons, sometimes people don't want to face the fact that their relationship is not working out the way that they want it to, and they don't want to face those conversations. And when that happens, you've got one person who's like, it's over, I've been through all of this, I've worked through it. They have that conversation, and suddenly they are having to have conversations with a partner whose head is spinning because 2 buses have just crashed in front of them and there's chaos everywhere. So part of the work is certainly with clients is looking at that, trying to help them understand why they're feeling the way that they're feeling, why they've got that one question racing around their head, why they're not eating, sleeping, all of that. But for others who may have agreed together, this relationship is over, then sometimes what I'll say to them is, okay, have a think. You're going to become co-parents, you're going to be living, and you're still a family. I think that's my main message. Despite the fact that your relationship is over as adults, you are still a family because you have children together, and there are responsibilities as your children's parents that will need to continue. So the family is not broken, the family is not ended. The family continues, and it's just changed shape. So you've gone from being a nuclear family, mum, dad, or mum, dad, whatever the combination, or even grandparents, whatever. Nuclear family, which is a nice circle shape with everybody contained within one home. And you go to, I sort of think of it as a capital T shape. So you've got 2 parents, 2 homes, and the children who are the stem that connect the 2. You are still a family,
just a different
still
structure.
a family, different structure. And so thinking about that, sometimes I'll say, okay, have a think about, how do you want that to look? Realistically, looking at the work that you do, if they both work, maybe one works, one doesn't, maybe one will have to get a job. Looking at the changes that are coming, how do you see this family working? Because if you can set people down on that road, and it's quite a big mind shift going from what you've always known, particularly if it's been a very long relationship. And, you know, I was just thinking about a family I'm working with at the moment. Both parents are in their 70s and they've just split and they've got adult children, you know, and these adult children are saying, was our childhood a lie? All those happy times on holiday, was it a lie? So it doesn't matter what age your children are, they're still going to be affected by this. But it's for a different reason. It's not the same feelings and emotions that the two parents are having, but the behavior can look the same. So sometimes it's about have a think realistically what can work, because if they go and see a family lawyer, quite often they come back and say, oh, we want 50-50. Well, okay, that might seem fair to you as adults, but looking at your job, looking at, you know, how you currently run your home, would that work? Would that be fair to your children? Because that's what we have to look at, how to manage their lives in a constructive way.
And I'm presuming from what you're saying, Adele, that process can take as long as a piece of string. For some people, it's a shorter process, but for some, that could take some time.
Yeah, it can take years, you know, because we call them bumps in the road. You know, there are often bumps in the road that come. So sometimes a couple can separate really amicably. They've sorted their child arrangements out and it's all going really, really well. And then one of them goes and gets a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and suddenly everything's not okay.
It's a bump.
It's a bump. So the whole point of early intervention is we can predict those bumps in the road, because these bumps in the road are generally quite common to every couple that separate. So we can talk about that right at the beginning. And even though they sit there swearing blind they're never going to be in another relationship ever again, you know, it will probably come at some point. So if you know about it, even if you promptly forget because you've got other things going on, when that happens, the seed has been sown.
You've
and
got
you'll
something
remember,
to tap into then.
Yeah, absolutely. So planting seeds about bumps in the road is quite a big part of the work, so that they're ready, that they're prepared.
And when you're explaining early intervention to people making inquiry, I mean, how do you sort of explain it in kind of 3 or 4 sentences, Adele, so people listening to this know exactly what it is and whether, you know, can make a decision about whether it's something they think's going to be able to suit their circumstances? Because people come to these things at different stages, don't they? As you're saying, everybody goes through the cycle. One person could be really angry, whereas somebody else in the relationship could be on the other side a bit more accepting of what's coming. And so how do you kind of explain it to people in a nutshell?
I think I try to link it to something big that they've had to make decisions about in their life before. So, you know, if you're going on a holiday of a lifetime with your family, you know, you're not just, or maybe some people would, but many people plan it. They like to do a bit of research, find out what's going on, where, what sort of things they're going to be doing when they're on holiday, how they're going to get there. You know, and one of the analogies I use is, you know, if somebody said to you tomorrow, right, Claire and Rachel, next week you are going to climb Kilimanjaro.
Yes.
Yeah, fabulous.
Yes.
Yes, no, you see the reaction straight away. So, okay, so off you go and come back and report when you've done it. Well, you know, you're going to want to find out first where it is, how you're going to get there, what equipment might you need, will you need a guide, you know, will you need to do any training? Is there going to be somebody there supporting you to keep you going on those moments where you can't go on anymore? You know, what are you going to need in order to make that journey? Separating as a couple when you have children is your Kilimanjaro moment. You know, you need to know, you know, what are you going to need around you? Who are you going to need around you? We've all got friends and family, and, you know, family tend to jump in and support you and want to make it better for you. They can't make it better for you. This is going to be a traumatic time. It's going to be a roller coaster of emotions. They can't make it better, but they can support you. So who are the friends and family you want around you that are going to give you balanced help? Not just take him for everything he's got, just take her to court, take her to the clinic. That's not helpful.
No.
So who are the friends that are going to support you? Who are the people around you, the family? Who are the experts around you who can give you some clear help, support and advice? What do you need to know as parents? What, you know, from about concerning your children, what do they need from you now you're going to be living separately? You know, because many people just think, well, oh, I'm the main carer. The other parent wasn't around much, so you know they left us, so they don't need to be in our lives anymore. Well, actually, they didn't leave us as a family. They left. It's harsh. They left you. You know, it's a relationship that has broken down. That's the only thing that's changed. Quite often, the parents I see that have left, you know, it's no easy journey for them. If you ever hear somebody say it's all right for them, they're the ones who've gone off and got this new lovely life. They haven't. I've had people in tears in my office because it's hard. It's really hard not seeing your kids every day. It's really hard living alone, making decisions every day when you've had a partner to do that with. So we look at
doing it together.
Absolutely. So I normally will give an analogy. The Kilimanjaro is an excellent one because, you know, it's a big mountain and you need to know what you're going to need to make that journey. And that's what this early intervention is. It's looking before everybody gets too upset about how to handle the emotions around separation, learning what your children are going to need from you, not only now, but going forward, and what you might need to learn, to find out about, to have around you, to make it as successful and as smooth as possible.
So it's like a roadmap. Sorry, Claire. It's a bit like a roadmap, isn't it? Really, it's kind of like you're getting in your car, put your seatbelts on. We're going on this journey together, and let's think about all of these places we're going to have to stop along the way. I suppose.
And you can choose the bumpy road with all the big mountains and the drops and the sheer drops on the side of the road as you're clinging to the road, or you can choose an easier way. And sometimes when the emotions run high, the bumpy route seems like the best option because you're getting retribution. You're trying to make somebody hurt as much as you're hurting, but long term it's exhausting. It's, if you're going through a court system, it's expensive. The kids are struggling, you know, so it's about learning some new skills to help you help your children first and foremost, and yourselves as you're going through it. A roadmap is a really good description.
And so is there a kind of group of couples or a section of people going through this that you think, no, this isn't the right process for them, only certain people can try this, or do you think anyone can try?
I think anyone can try. Obviously, you know, we have to think about safety. So there are certain relationships that are very unhealthy and toxic and damaging, not only to the couple, but to the children as well. Sometimes when adults relationship break down, sometimes the behavior of those adults changes quite a lot. And you know, most of my clients would describe their exes as narcissists. They're all narcissists. We're living in a world of narcissists. We're not, actually. Some people are narcissists, definitely, but if you didn't marry a narcissist, chances are they're not a narcissist. It's just they're showing bad behavior because they're traumatized just like you are. It's just the way that we show that when we're under duress. So you know, it's I think anybody needs that information, you know, particularly if it's a first separation, because you know, we're now living in a society where blended families outweigh nuclear families, and so this could be somebody's second or third relationship breakdown with more children involved. So I think the more information that people have, the better it is going forward. You know, we have to think about what our life is going to look like what we're going to look like, what our relationships are going to look like 10, 20 years from now if we don't get this right. Because in relationships, children are watching us all of the time, and we're really training the next lot of adults. And so what we're teaching them is how men treat women, how women treat men, what mums are, what dads are, and what happens in those relationships. You know, I've worked with so many teenagers who are in really quite controlling and coercive relationships, but they stay in it even though they don't like it, because having a boyfriend is better in their peer group than being single. And so learning about healthy relationships, and maybe they're from families where they haven't learned what a healthy relationship is. We have to get this right. If we don't get it right, what are our relationships going to look like going forward?
What are we teaching the next generation?
Absolutely, absolutely. We need to get this right for them so that they can go on, and also so those parents can go on, find a partner and have a healthy relationship themselves. You know, because when you've come out of a relationship that hasn't worked, again, there was a lot of work around that to be done, because you know, it's what you can learn from that relationship. What am I bringing to the future? And if you are locked in battles, sometimes with multiple partners from past relationships, do you know, it's exhausting, and we're left feeling unfulfilled and that we can never get a relationship that's right for us. Do the work early on. Get it right. We're not going to get it 100% right all of the time, because we're human and we get it wrong. But learn from when we get it wrong. So some of the work I do with soon-to-be co-parents is, okay, go away and practice, you know, communicating together. Expect to get it wrong sometimes. And when you do get it wrong, stop, reflect, think about it. Okay, what happened this time that made it go wrong? Because last time we spoke about holiday arrangements, you know, holiday time, we got it right and it was all peaceful and lovely, and we communicated and we agreed. This time we didn't. Why didn't we? What went wrong this time? Because if we can compare and contrast, firstly, we're seeing, yes, we can do it because we've done it before, but also we're learning from that experience, and that's really important.
And just in terms of, I mean, obviously the work you do is incredibly valuable, Adele, and hopefully a time will come where these services are, you know, more available for people. But in terms of the business you've got and how it helps people, have you got a couple of examples, a couple of success stories about how it's had a positive impact for people moving forward?
Definitely. I think the one that stands out for me is a couple that I worked with a long time ago now, and both professionals, both very busy in their business, and they'd got one child. And when they came to me, it was the ladies. It was a male-female relationship that they'd been going through the court system for 8 years.
Oh.
And they'd got I think the child was about 10 or 11, something like that. So most of that child's life had been, you know, not unnatural, that's not the right word, but it hadn't been like his friend's family life. You know, it had been very, very different. Court was a word he knew. Court was a word he knew that it would stress his parents out, you know, when they went back to court. So they came to me quite late in their separation, and it was the lady's solicitor that recommended that they come to me. So I had a conversation with her. Neither parent was talking to each other. They weren't agreeing to things. Everything had to be by the court order to the letter. So there was no flexibility and no peace and calm in this child's life at handover when they were going from different family time with each parent. And anyway, so I had a chat to her, and she was very keen to go ahead. Her solicitor had talked to his solicitor and said, I suggest this, it might be a help. Anyway, the mum thought that the dad would be reluctant. Anyway, he called me And he said, well, I've been told to call. My solicitor says it'll be a waste of time, but I'm here. And I said, okay, well, look, this is just a conversation. It's going to take, what, 15, 20 minutes of your time. If you don't like what you hear, you don't have to come back. And sometimes it's important to say that, because if you're told to go and do something and you're angry and upset, the last thing you want to do is go and
the
do
mindset's
something.
all wrong.
Completely wrong. So that, I always find that's quite freeing for people. You come, it's half an hour out of your life. You don't ever have to come back. Anyway, he was keen. He booked in, and I saw them individually for an appointment, and then I saw them together. At the end of the work, which probably took on and off 7 months, they hadn't agreed things like the value of the house. There were belongings that one had got that wouldn't give to the other. It was a mess, really. After that work, they had sorted the house, they'd given the things back, and more importantly, there was an episode where the mum was going to pick the little boy up from a school match, and her car broke down in the middle of nowhere. So she called the dad, told him what happened. He went and picked her up, picked the child up. They went for tea, and he dropped them back home at mum's home. So, you know, that's a lovely, it was a lot of work, you know, and they worked so hard, the two of them, because they really didn't like each other at all. And they were then meeting regularly, planning meetings, who was doing what. They went and watched games together. You know, it totally revolutionized the way that they parented. It doesn't work for everybody. You know, I have a case at the moment, and I'm going to have to stop the work because they are not motivated enough for change. The hate is so deep. And again, that's another long case. They've been at it for 8 years. You know, it's a long time to be in litigation, and they've become almost lawyer-like, you know, themselves. And that's why early intervention is so important, because I think if we're getting people right at the beginning of the process, where they can go for mediation, you know, my role is really helping people to get to that place in their heads where they come to you, they sit down, and you say, okay, well, these are the things, you know, that you want sorted. What are your thoughts? And they've already maybe started thinking about that, and they can at least talk to each other in a friendly way, knowing that if they're feeling angry with each other, they understand that today's an angry day. So I'm just putting it out there, today's an angry day. I might not be as willing to compromise as I might tomorrow.
And that's so helpful in the mediation process. You know, Rachel and I are both solely mediating, and what that means is we start the mediation process in the right footing. We start off with a positive, so we can only see the benefits of this kind of support working with mediation. And I presume you see it too from the other side. You see how if the financial issues and the child arrangements are being sorted in mediation, that also unlocks some pressure for you in terms of the pressure points of what might be causing the issues. You're sorting out the bumps in the road, and we're sorting out the kind of big picture plan, and the two together can work beautifully.
Absolutely. And I think anything that we can do early on that means people don't go to court. I think court has its place for those really dangerous relationships, where it's really, you know, dangerous for the people in those relationships and their children. Absolutely, court is the best place. But for a majority of the people who are in the court system at the moment, they don't need to be there. And in my experience, court always makes it worse, because how on earth are you going to co-parent when you've been to court and in your head, because your legal team have said, we're going to get this, it's going to be fine, and you go in and the judge is there, and you know that judge is going to side with you because you're right and they're wrong, and both of you are thinking that, and then the judge makes a decision. Somebody's going to feel, you know, big smash with a hammer, you know, world split apart, because how could he not agree with me? I'm right about this. What happens then when you have to leave the court and you've got to go back to your life and co-parent your children. How is that going to make that better? It doesn't. Mediation, working with somebody like me, there are some excellent co-parenting coaches out there, really, really good, you know, who can really help you shift your mindset, you know, help you through the trauma and the upset, and talking through all those feelings, learning about what your children need from you in order to make those important decisions and go on and live a happy co-parenting life. It is
Oh, that's
possible.
so valuable, Adele. I mean, you know that we're sold. We think it's great. So it's so good that you're able to talk so brilliantly about it and so clearly. And hopefully the people listening will see the same. We will make sure that all of your contact details are shared at the same time, Adele, so that anyone can contact you, or they can contact Rachel and I, and we can pass on your details. But thank you so much for today.
Yes, thank
we
you.
really
No problem.
appreciate
Really
it.
Lovely
to talk with
talking.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.